Peace, love, liberty, radio.
And the walls come crashing down as the war at home reaches your town. You have no choice, it's safe and clean. We all submit to the war machine.
So I'm recording the show a little early today because today is Bitcoin Black Friday. That means that, well, I can't do my regular job that makes me money because no one will be there to answer telephones. So I'm going to record the show early, then go to the gym. Yes, I know I went yesterday, but I'm going again today because I definitely overate, and that's because yesterday was Thanksgiving. And, well, I want to tell you that we actually celebrated Thanksgiving early this year, and we've been celebrating Thanksgiving early for about 160 years, I think, is how long Thanksgiving has actually been an official holiday. And the reason I say we're celebrating it early, and the reason I go back 160 years, is because, well, that's when it became an official holiday, but Thanksgiving should actually be December 4th. And I'll explain why. Because I want to tell you the story about the first real Thanksgiving. And yes, I realize that there was one possibly in September of 1565, but there's no documents actually citing that. It's one of these hearsay sort of, well, I heard that there was one, but there's no documents supporting the claim that there was a feast of Thanksgiving, or rather a Mass of Thanksgiving in St. Augustine, Florida in September 8th, 1565. But we do know for a fact that there was a Thanksgiving in Jamestown, Virginia, about 2 years before there was a Thanksgiving in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Because, well, at the time, there were no people living in Plymouth, Massachusetts when there was the Feast of Thanksgiving, December 4th, 1619. So let me now tell you the story of the first Thanksgiving in the United States, or in what became the United States in the New World, if you will. So in 1607, the Jamestown settlement was established in present-day Virginia. And for the first 12 years of the colony, there was no established or recognized government as we know it. The first representative assembly in the New World convened in the Jamestown Church on July 30th of 1619. The General Assembly met in response to orders from the Virginia Company to establish one equal and uniform government over all of Virginia, which would provide just laws for the happy guiding and governing of the people there inhabiting. Later that year, on December 4th, a group of settlers arrived where they held a service thanking God for their safe arrival. Some suggest that this was the first true Thanksgiving in America, ahead of the Pilgrims' arrival in Massachusetts. Before leaving England, the settlers vowed, "We ordain that the day of our ship's arrival at the place assigned for the plantation in the land of Virginia shall be a yearly and perpetually kept holy as a day of thanksgiving to Almighty God." Those words are carved on a brick gazebo marking the approximate location of their landing along the James River in Berkeley Plantation. The first Thanksgiving, thus, was not because of a bountiful harvest or because settlers were saved from starvation by a group of natives, as you have so often heard. The first day of Thanksgiving in the New World was a day to give thanks for safe arrival from England. So there you have the story of the first real Thanksgiving that should be properly celebrated December 4th, which would be next Friday, actually 1 week from today. And 1 week from today, on this show, the winner of the 2015 FPP Peace Prize will be announced, so you want to make sure that you tune in for that. And because today is Bitcoin Black Friday, I want to make sure that I tell you about some special deals that you can get. You can go to bitcoinblackfriday.info and find a long list of special deals, or you can go to btcshop.fpp.cc. Everything in the FPP Bitcoin shop is an extra 10% off the already reduced prices that are always 5% off, and there's never any shipping. So right now you're saving almost 15%. And the reason I say that is because when you take 10% off of something that's already 5% off, it does not become 15% off. It becomes like 14.6 because of the way math works. And there's also a discount code that I have posted on the Facebook page, and it's also posted on Twitter. And I'll post it in the show notes as well. The first 10 people to use this discount code will wind up saving, hold on to your hats for this, 20% on top of the 10%, on top of the 5% on all orders between $20 and $200. And I did the math on that last night, and it works out to be 31.6% that you can save by using the coupon code. You know what? I'll just go ahead and tell you the coupon code BTC, as in, well, it's the abbreviation for Bitcoin. So use coupon code BTC when you check out at the Bitcoin store, btcshop.fpp.cc. Save an extra 20% on top of the 10%, on top of the 5%, on top of free shipping. And that code works only for orders between $20 and $200. And yes, the discount of if you buy 10 or more books, you get 30%. That still winds up working. So you could wind up saving somewhere near 60% when all said and done if you buy 10 or more books and it's less than $200 and you use coupon code BTC. That is good for the first 10 people that wind up using that. And I've actually got that code set to where it will go all the way through Cyber Monday, assuming it's not used up by then. Cyber Monday being this upcoming Monday, November 30th. So go now to btcshop.fpp.cc. Use that code, save an extra 20% on top of the extra 10% because of Bitcoin Black Friday, on top of the always reduced 5% and always free shipping. So there's something that happened earlier in the week that I definitely want to make sure that I talk about. And it's something that I've been talking about for a while. And actually, before I wind up getting into the story about what happened in Kunduz, actually some of the fallout where people are being held accountable, it's not the right people in my opinion, and it doesn't go far enough. But before I get into that, I want to, when I come back, I want to tell you what I would love to be able to say this Thanksgiving, but unfortunately, I cannot. So stay tuned. I'll tell you what I would love to say for Thanksgiving. During the 2013 Porcupine Freedom Festival, Davi Barker presented an idea for a renegade psychological experiment. Since then, he has refined his idea and put his plan and research into writing. He explains, "We aim to show the world beyond a shadow of a doubt that power corrupts absolutely and corrupt authority deserves no obedience." Authoritarian Sociopathy is available from Amazon.com, all major bookstores, and now available as an audiobook.
It is the year 91,001 BCE. Witness humanity's origins in Hyperchronius, a classic role-playing game for Windows PCs with a story like no other game before. The liberty-oriented experience that is not to be missed. Go to ZOG.ninja to get your copy of Hypercronius today. Use the code FPP to get $1 off. Hypercronius. ZOG.ninja. Code FPP.
You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates, like Namecheap, Spendabit, and Amazon at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. Or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. That's shop.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry. Online at fppradio.com.
So what message would I love to give? Love to say that I'm thankful that I live in a country to where we are truly free. I would love to say that I live in a country to where 1,000 people have not been killed by police. I would love to say that I live in a country where no one has been killed by police. I would love to say that I live in a country to where grandmothers are not being harassed by police for giving people rides in their cars using a cell phone application. I would love to say that I live in a country to where people are not having the fruits of their labor stolen by governments. I would love to say that I live in a country where people that commit war crimes are actually charged as war criminals, but unfortunately I can't say any of those things because it came out about a week and a half ago that police in the United States have killed over 1,000 people so far this year. There's a grandmother in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, that has now been given her fourth citation. I believe it's the third citation of $1,000 for violating some taxi ordinance because she's giving people rides using Uber. This grandmother, I think she's 60-something, probably maybe early 70s, but she is trying to make some extra money driving for Uber. And, well, she's now been cited 4 times for violating the taxi ordinances, and she's not stopping. She's going to continue driving for Uber. And I wish that I could say that things like this are not happening, that the taxi companies are not calling the police to say, somebody's giving somebody a ride, go harass them. But that's happening in this country. What also is happening is the U.S. military is bombing innocent people around the world, creating enemies. And, well, almost 2 months ago, they bombed a hospital in Kunduz, Afghanistan. And, well, now I want to get into this. And luckily, there has been some kind of punishment given to somebody, but it's definitely not the right people. And I'll explain what I mean. So the story comes from UPI, and they report that Army General John Campbell, who is the top U.S. commander in Afghanistan, announced on Wednesday that multiple U.S. service members have been suspended over the bombing of the Doctors Without Borders hospital in Kunduz, Afghanistan. Campbell said the bombing of the hospital was the direct result of human error compounded by systems and procedural failures. Doctors Without Borders, officially known as Médecins Sans Frontières, which is French and referred to by the acronym MSF, has sharply and continuously condemned the strike. And I cannot blame them because there's laws of war. The Geneva Conventions talks about ways in which war is supposed to be conducted. And one of the laws of war is that hospitals do not get bombed. Even if there's fighters fighting from the hospital, you cannot bomb the hospital without first notifying the operators of the hospital and giving them warning of, hey, we believe that there's fighters from in your facility. We're going to take action now. And, well, if you've listened to this show, you've heard the ever-changing narrative coming from the U.S. military, to where at first they said, well, there was fighting from within, and then it was, we didn't realize that that's what it was, and then they said something else, and then it's been this sort of ever-changing, it was a mistake. Well, on Tuesday of this week, some military officials said that the military targeted the Doctors Without Borders hospital in an airstrike because it mistook the building for a Taliban site from which fighters were firing at forces on the ground. The Army General John Campbell said during a press conference on Wednesday, the U.S. forces directly involved in this incident did not know the target compound was the MSF Trauma Center. The medical facility was misidentified as a target by U.S. personnel who believed they were striking a different building several hundred meters away where there were reports of combatants. And now I just want to sort of break down what he's saying here, because remember earlier the Pentagon said Doctors Without Borders did everything right, meaning that Doctors Without Borders was continuously notifying governments and government officials, hey, just a reminder, here's our GPS coordinates. Hey, just a reminder, we're here. Hey, just a reminder, we're a hospital. Hey, just a reminder, here's our GPS coordinates. Hey, just a reminder, we're a hospital. And the Pentagon says, yep, thanks. Hey, you're doing everything right. And then the U.S. military bombs the hospital. And, well, now he says that, well, the forces that dropped the bombs did not know that it was a trauma center, and he says that they mistook it for a building several hundred meters away. Now, meters is not generally a term of distance used in the United States. And, that's because we don't use the metric system. But a meter is roughly a yard. It's roughly 3 feet. 1,000 meters is a kilometer, which is 0.62 miles. So several hundred meters could be 300, could be 600, could be 900, could be 1,200, depending on how you define several. This could be somewhere up to, or maybe a little further than, 1 kilometer away, meaning that it could be probably half a mile or more away from where this hospital was. But I think that the Army general here is using the term several hundred meters because he thinks that people don't really understand what meters are, and they might think that it's feet. So, there is a hospital just right next door to a Taliban site. No wonder they got confused. No, it wasn't right next to it. It was a somewhat lengthy distance away. The article here from UPI continues. It says military personnel who were closely involved in the Doctors Without Borders hospital bombing have been suspended, but Campbell did not identify them any further. Doctors Without Borders has said it believes the errant airstrikes were a war crime and have asked for an independent investigation into the bombing, in which about 30 people died in the airstrike. And yes, my understanding of the international laws of war is that the airstrike on the hospital in Kunduz, Afghanistan, most certainly was a war crime. And, well, the U.S. military and the U.S. government is doing everything they can to make sure that an independent investigation does not happen. Remember, it was just a couple of weeks after the bombing on October 3rd that the U.S. military sent a tank into the facility and smashed in and broke down some walls and destroyed some of the evidence that would likely be very helpful to independent investigators. And the Pentagon has offered hush money that Doctors Without Borders has refused. So there's just a little bit more to this story. So stay tuned here on the Bitcoin Black Friday edition.
Hey, this is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends radio show. I've been working with computer programmer Derek Slopey to create Fiend Phone. I'm using Fiend Phone right now to talk with and record one of my co-hosts in real time. Take it, Davi.
Hey, this is Davi Barker, and I'm 1,000 miles away from Michael, but we sound like we're in the same room.
We sure do, Davi. So, Davi, please tell the nice people more about Fiend Phone.
Fiend Phone is free, open-source software that opens up a global world of possibilities for collaborative, high-quality remote voice media production, and I'm digging it.
People can try the Windows beta version of Fiend Phone right now at fiendphone.com. But we're also raising money to vastly improve Fiend Phone and vastly improve independent talk media worldwide.
So go to fiendphone.com to help out. Who will build the audio roads? We will, with your help.
That's fiendphone.com. FEENPHONE.com. Foxtrot, Echo, November, phone.com.
Fiend Phone. I never knew remote audio could be this good.
When her plush and comfy life suddenly and unexpectedly fell apart, Brooke and her dog Cloud set out to defy the odds. If this is a man's world, as they say, living on the streets is no place for a young woman. One day she awoke in the redwood forest and realized she had become a hobo, and would ultimately come to know exactly what it means to survive. How to Be a Hobo by Brooke Willett is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
So before I continue with the story here about the forces, some of the forces being reprimanded, and by reprimanded I mean given a basically what amounts to a paid vacation. They've been suspended from their military jobs. Before I continue with that story, I want to make sure that I tell you about Liberty.me. Liberty.me, it's more than just a social networking website. Certainly there is the social networking aspect of Liberty.me, but there's so much more. There's ebooks that you can download. There are Liberty guides that you can download. There's forums. In addition to the social networking part of the site where you can post statuses, you can share cat memes, you can join groups, but there's also forums and there's also chat rooms. You don't get chat rooms in traditional social media, or rather traditional social networking sites. And something that you will not find at Liberty.me, internet trolls. And that's because Liberty.me is a paid service. And, well, you don't get internet trolls on sites where people have to pay because internet trolls don't want to have to pay to be an internet troll. Now, you can save on your membership to Liberty.me when you use referral code FPP Radio. So go there now or at the end of the podcast, Liberty.me, use referral code FPP Radio and save 10%. So there's just a little bit more from this story from UPI, and then there's a couple other stories that are sort of tangential to this. Army General Campbell added, quote, the report, that being a report by the Pentagon, the report also determined that the personnel who requested the strike and those who executed it from the air did not undertake the appropriate measure to verify that the facility was a legitimate military target. He added that the bombing was not intentional and that officials were heartbroken over the loss of innocent lives. But yet there's never any heartbreak when military personnel fire missiles from Predator drones on weddings in Yemen, and nearly everybody killed is labeled a civilian. That means innocent, right? Because if you're not a combatant, then essentially in war, you're innocent. You're either a combatant or a non-combatant. And even if you were a combatant and you surrender, there are protections in the laws of war for people who have surrendered. There are protections for people that were combatants who are no longer fighting. And what that means is basically if you have either surrendered or you are injured or incapable of fighting. So if you have become a prisoner of war, or if you're surrendering or attempting to surrender, or if you're injured and you're getting medical treatment, you are no longer fighting. So there are protections in the laws of war for those people as well. And there are protections against non-combatants, meaning people that never were fighting. But yet, no one is being suspended or reprimanded or punished in any way for the 90% of civilian casualties that have occurred in Iraq, in Pakistan, in Yemen, in probably Somalia as well. And the 90% figure, that's not a number that I'm making up. There are government reports that say that 90% of people that are killed in what they call targeted drone strikes. And a targeted drone strike is supposed to be one to where they know exactly who they are killing. But 90% of people killed in targeted drone strikes are innocent bystanders. That meaning they are either labeled as a civilian, they are somehow not classifiable as a possible terrorist, meaning that they're either a woman or a child under the age of like 12. Sometimes it's 12, sometimes it's 18, depending on the country, and that changes all the time. That's why I never know exactly what it is. But even when you have this broad definition of possible terrorist, and 90% of the people that you're killing wind up getting labeled as innocent civilians, there's a problem with the tactics that you're using. And they wonder, they being the people in charge, the people in the military, the people, the higher-ups in the government, they wonder, why do they hate us? Well, maybe because you're just randomly killing people. Because remember back on September 11th, 2001, how you got all upset, and so did I, about the loss of innocent life. Well, 3,000 people lost their lives when those towers came down. And that was absolutely a horrible, horrible thing that happened. But, well, you can't wind up, selectively thinking about the way things happen. It's okay for us to be upset and for us to want retribution and retaliation when people wind up dying, but it's not okay for them. No, you can't have selective morals like that and be a logically consistent human being. If you're going to think that it's appropriate for one person to be upset over the loss of innocent life, then it's perfectly okay for other people to be upset when their friends and family and neighbors who are innocent bystanders wind up getting killed. But yet, the people in the government, specifically, the president, the vice president, people in Congress, military commanders, they want this weird selective enforcement to where it's okay for us to seek retribution when somebody is killed, but it's not okay for them. Well, maybe, what's the saying of, walk a mile in their shoes and then, see how it feels? And then there was the excellent speech by Ron Paul, I believe delivered on the floor of Congress, the what if speech. And I'll see if I can't find that speech, like a link to the YouTube video of that speech. I'll post that in the show notes. Because he does give this speech to where he's asking the questions of, hey, what if there were Chinese military bases in our backyards? Would you be okay with that? What if this were happening? What if this scenario? And all of the questions that he was asking were basically rephrasings of things that the U.S. military is doing around the world. But yet somehow it's not okay for other people to be upset by the actions of the U.S. military. And I find that to be completely hypocritical. So let me jump over to this antiwar.com article real quick. And they basically say pretty much what I've already covered. But I just want to reiterate one thing, that now the narrative of that bombing of the hospital in Kunduz, Afghanistan was, quote-unquote, human error. which is pretty much like one of the first couple of excuses given by the Pentagon of, oh, well, it was just a mistake. Was just a mistake. We didn't realize it. Even though they told us that it was a hospital, we didn't realize it. Hey, don't forget, every Wednesday I answer your questions. Send those AMA at FPPradio.com and have a wonderful holiday weekend.